Welcome back to All Day. As we've seen, and we just covered a few minutes ago in the wake of what happened yesterday in St. Paul, where community questioned what immigration enforcement action was happening there, who was involved, what they were doing. A lot of questions about how immigration agents are operating in communities. A lot of concern about what appears to be a level of secrecy here. You're wearing masks. Maybe the identification lacks a little bit. There's some, but not all. Local officials saying they don't get a heads up that anything is coming. Is this new? Has it always been this way? To discuss that and more is Jim Hayes, a former ICE and Homeland Security agent of 20 years. The bulk of that with ICE in New York and Los Angeles. Thank you for joining us today.
Good to be here.
What has changed? You've been retired for some time, but spent many years in this arena. What has changed in what you've seen with these immigration enforcement actions of late compared to what you witnessed when you were involved in them directly?
We bring up the masks and the identification, and I think one of the things that's changed is the opposition to immigration enforcement in this country. It has become very much organized, and in such a way that there are people that are and organizations that are committed to identifying these agents who are, again, doing their jobs. They're doing the work that Congress has said years ago should be done. And so they see this as a means to protect themselves, not as a means to obscure who they are, or not because they're hiding what they're doing. They're obviously out in public taking these measures. But I read constantly, and this is an important point, is that people say that this administration has changed the game. They've changed the tactics. And I think it's important to remember that they haven't. What's gone on here is between the administrations of Barack Obama and Joe Biden, even to a large degree in the first Trump administration, immigration enforcement was largely non-existent. These were the most welcoming administrations for foreign nationals, particularly the Biden administration, where they made it so that you could schedule your appointment to enter the U.S. and claim asylum on an app. So I think that the change here in terms of the demeanor and the appearance of the agents is more of a protective mechanism. And look, nobody likes it. Nobody likes the fact that these agents have to do that, feel that they have to do that. But also, they're out in public. They don't have the ability or the luxury of doing their job in an office protected by security. They have to go out. They're taking risks of their lives. And when people show up to protest and enforcement action, it just makes all of those things that much more difficult.
So have you seen this then, where you say that there's been more of an effort to identify the agents involved and then maybe use that identification to have some sort of, I don't know, would you say harassment? I mean, what happens when people try to identify those that they can?
Well, it's gone beyond harassment. It's gone to people showing up at the homes of the head of the agency right now, at the head of the border czar over the course of the earlier months of this administration, and publicizing the names, the addresses, phone numbers in instances, personal information when they can get it on the internet, so that other people who are opposed to immigration enforcement can go ahead and take that and really do whatever they want with it. So that's a significant concern. And look, people have the right in this country. It's one of the great things about America to disagree, to not believe in these laws. There's ways to handle that other than trying to harm or put in harm's way the people who are hired by the government to carry out the laws enacted by Congress.
Okay, so the wearing of masks then is a bit of a change, but it's in reaction to a change of the community response to identifying the agents. Okay.
Absolutely. Definitely a change from again, when I was in and when I was managing offices, we didn't have the threats of not just individuals who were organized with groups that are opposed to immigration enforcement, but also elected officials. Elected officials who are putting out this information of here are the addresses, here are the names of ICE agents in particular offices. So they've taken these measures, and I don't think there's anybody who likes it. There's nobody who wants it to be permanent. I wish there was a better solution to it than that.
Okay, and you hear complaints too from mayors, council members, et cetera, that they didn't know that any of these operations are going to happen in their city. Now, in a lot of police departments, just sort of by policy or by statute, don't partake or don't do any immigration enforcement. So then, has it always been normal that ICE in turn does not inform those departments when an operation is planned?
So in this instance, my understanding is that this was a federal criminal search warrant, and ideally you'd love to be able to tell local law enforcement. You'd love to be able to communicate with select local political leaders that, hey, we have an investigation, here's something sensitive, here's some criminal activity that we believe is going on. The issue is, and it's the polarization of the immigration issue. Of course, ICE, its investigative arm, Homeland Security Investigations, they're responsible for the enforcement and the investigation of more than 400 different federal statutes, 390 of those having nothing to do with immigration. But because it's linked to the ICE name, those elected officials in many instances have gone about and they've informed the community, they've informed other members of the public, and that creates a dangerous situation for agents. It creates a dangerous situation for the people who are the subjects of the investigation. And just if you look at some of the photos from this investigation, there were DEA agents out there. I believe there were some FBI agents out there. So this is a multi-jurisdictional criminal investigation. We don't have a lot of details on that because that's governed by grand jury proceedings in the prosecutor's office. And so one of the questions that I have, quite honestly, is, was there some type of information that was spread? Because this is not something that's going to be made public, that you're conducting a federal criminal search warrant. And this is 9 a.m. and protesters are out there. So I wonder about operational security in the courthouse, in and around the area, to where people knew that this activity that was going to take place was taking place.
Well, I do know that what I saw on social media platforms is that there were community members who saw them gathering at a nearby park, staging essentially to do this. And from there, the word spread quickly. And maybe potentially they just followed them to where they were. And that's what it seems to be. Those are very valid questions that you brought up, but from everything that I've seen, it appears to be simply what somebody saw and then spread the word quickly. In the case, and yes, I did see DEA, FBI, et cetera, out there. And so again, we're told that this is a criminal investigation. I understand that you cannot reveal too much about that. You don't want to jeopardize the investigation, but is there a need to reveal some more information to let the public know that this is a criminal investigation beyond just saying that there more context to it to try to sort of, I guess, calm fears or put out some fires?
Well, and I think that's the difficult balance that this agency finds itself in, is that, let's say this investigation, we don't know, but let's say it has nothing to do with immigration. Let's say it's a drug investigation, or it's a cross-border counterfeit merchandise investigation, right? People are already assuming the worst. They're already assuming and making the normal complaints that are made by organized groups that are against immigration, that this is unlawful, this is unnecessary, all these different things. Many times, these investigations, when you conduct a search warrant, you're looking to obviously identify and collect evidence. You want to identify and collect perhaps statements from people who have information about a criminal ring that's operating. And there are other targets. So there may be other locations. There may be leaders of organized criminal rings that they're trying to get information and access to. And unfortunately, by publicizing that information, that just allows those people who may be targets of your investigation to get rid of evidence, to leave the jurisdiction, to leave the country. So in order to have success in these investigations, you do have to have a veil of secrecy. You do have to limit what you're putting out there to the public. And that's particularly true now when everything involving ICE, thanks to a lot of factors that have nothing to do with the agency or the people, the men and women who are in the agency, is so polarized that anything they do is going to be attacked, regardless of how good it is, regardless of the positive things that it brings to the community. It's just the way it is right now. So I do think that there has to be a veil of secrecy, particularly in criminal investigations, where the race is on to get enough information and evidence to be able to secure indictments and convictions.
Yeah, I've seen this in other federal investigations, as you mentioned, where there are simultaneous search warrants being served at multiple locations at the same time to preserve that surprise so that nobody gets tipped off. And so some of these may fall into that sort of investigation. I guess I'm just wondering, you know, what more information can you reveal to try to add some clarity without jeopardizing the investigation? I mean, as you mentioned, that's a tightrope you walk, but I mean, is it possible to just say a little bit more so it doesn't seem like there's this veil of secrecy to the public?
It honestly depends on the facts of each case, right? And I'm not privy to the facts of this case. We're not privy to the facts of this case. What I do know is that when this case does come to a conclusion, meaning when they've identified all the people that they are targeting, when they've identified all the evidence to make decisions about who they should target or where they will go and what they will target, one of the things that this administration has done, and honestly all administrations have done this with respect to criminal investigations generally conducted by federal law enforcement agencies, is they will release that information to the public. There will be court filings. There will be affidavits that are filled out by Homeland Security agents, by DEA agents, by agents from other agencies that will explicitly lay out the steps that investigators took, the information they collected, and why they believe that the charges that they are filing are accurate and necessary. And it may not come today, it may not come tomorrow, but at some point there will be more information released about these investigations.
Okay, and then one more thing I want to ask you about. You know, the Trump administration from the beginning has sort of been very clear that they want to target violent criminals who are in the country illegally or don't have legal status here. You hear reports from other raids where people are saying these aren't violent criminals, you know, that they've been rounding up. I mean, what have you been seeing in terms of who these immigration enforcement actions have been targeting?
Well, when you look at the situation here, right, federal criminal search warrant, obviously they're targeting criminal activity. That's something that generally people agree with. When you look at a lot of the other actions and operations throughout the country, just in Texas last week, they arrested 135 people, many of those sexual predators. The reality of the fact is they are going after criminals. But this administration has also made the point that because of lax immigration enforcement under the last administration, they feel that it's necessary to go ahead and widen that net. And so people who are particularly recent illegal entrants into the United States are going to face additional scrutiny right now as they're conducting their operations to identify criminals and identify criminal rings. They're not going to turn and look the other way when they encounter people who just came into the country illegally but have no other convictions.
Okay. Well, thanks for providing your insight on this. I mean, many years with immigration and customs enforcement, and retired from that, but which is why you're able to speak about it without, you know, jeopardizing anything. But your context is certainly valuable. Appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, there you go. Providing some context into some of these immigration enforcement actions. Certainly yesterday in St. Paul, a federal search warrant. This is similar to what we saw in Minneapolis earlier this year on Lake Street, which was you know, perceived initially as a purely immigration enforcement action, but it was a federal search warrant involving a drug investigation, and then the FBI and others revealed that this was part of certainly a massive drug, I believe it was a methamphetamine operation where they got a bunch of evidence there. So again, we're waiting for more information to shed any light onto what this criminal investigation was that resulted in this search warrant yesterday in St. Paul, and then of course leading to a clash, as it were, with people who showed up to object